What happens when a powerful TV host tries to ambush a congresswoman on live television, only to have her own secret script read back to her word for word in front of millions? Joy Behar didn't know it yet, but she was about to become the headline of her own takedown, because when Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett walked onto that set, she carried more than opinions. She carried evidence. The email landed like a loaded question. 47 p.m. Subject line: The Round Table, Tomorrow's Show, Invitation for Congresswoman Crockett. On the surface, it read like any other media invite. Professional, enthusiastic, just vague enough to sound safe. But Jasmine Crockett didn't survive the political machine by falling for theater wrapped in flattery. She read it once. Then again. Then a third time, slower. High visibility segment. Timely opportunity to address your critics. We're building a conversation around party unity. Unity. That word always made her wary. In Washington, unity was usually code for shut up and take the hit. Jasmine leaned back in her chair, her eyes narrowing, her instincts buzzing like a live wire. Something was off. Too warm. Too last minute. Too much reach from someone who spent years avoiding my name. She called out, "Sasha, you up?" Sasha, her longtime aide and unofficial bullshit detector, stepped into the room holding her phone and a mug of peppermint tea. "Let me guess. They want to amplify your voice right before cutting your mic?" Jasmine lifted the laptop so Sasha could see. Sasha didn't even bother walking closer. "That's a trap," she said flatly. Jasmine nodded. "I know." Sasha dropped into the armchair, already opening Twitter. Joy's been going full attack mode lately. She cornered a senator last week with a fake stat, then framed the clip like a gotcha moment. Views hit 2.4 million in under 24 hours. Jasmine closed the laptop and stood. "That's why I'm going." Sasha blinked. "Wait, what?" Jasmine opened her closet and pulled out the crimson blazer, her unofficial battle flag. If they think I'm scared of ratings games and scripted jabs, they've forgotten who they're dealing with. "But it's not just Joy," Sasha said, sitting up straighter. "Her producers set the tone. Her editors choose the frame. Her audience comes ready to clap for a takedown. You walk into that studio, and you're stepping into a machine built to chew people up." Jasmine ran her hand along the blazer sleeve, lost in thought. "Good. Let it try." The night stretched on. 1:45 a.m. Jasmine was on the floor surrounded by documents, voting data, legislative drafts, policy memos. A whiteboard leaned against the wall, scribbled with counterpoints, quotes, statistics. Preparation wasn't about answers. It was about control. Control of the narrative, the rhythm, the tempo of the room. Sasha sat cross-legged nearby, silent, her face tense. "Remember when you first ran?" she said quietly. "When they said you were too loud, too direct, too passionate?" Jasmine looked up. They didn't mean too. They meant not polite enough to ignore. Sasha half smiled. "And now you're walking into a studio where they've already written the ending of the movie." "Then I'll change the script." Just after 3 a.m., Jasmine's phone lit up. Unknown number. One word. "Careful." She stared at it, lips tightening. It wasn't fear she felt. It was confirmation. They were watching, which meant they were worried. She didn't reply. She didn't flinch. She just finished her tea, zipped her folder, and whispered to herself, "Let's give them a reason to be afraid." By dawn, Washington's skyline was barely visible behind a curtain of cloud. The air was cold, sharp, electric. Jasmine stepped into the car, waiting to take her to the studio, red blazer on, eyes forward, jaw set. Joy Behar was expecting a guest. She had no idea a reckoning was on the way. The car ride to the studio was silent, by choice. No playlist, no calls. No idle chatter. Just Jasmine Crockett, staring out the window as DC's glass towers blurred by, her mind sharpening like a blade being pulled across stone. She wasn't nervous. She was ready. She had grown up in rooms where people smiled while they dismissed you, where being underestimated was an advantage until the moment you made it a weapon. This wasn't her first ambush, but it might be her most public. The studio sat in a gleaming building with tinted windows that reflected the gray sky like a mirror. From the outside, it looked like neutrality. On the inside, manufactured narratives sold as truth. The lobby was cold, not just in temperature, but in tone. A receptionist offered her a polite, robotic smile. "We're so glad you could join us on short notice, Congresswoman." Short notice, Jasmine thought. That's how you keep people off balance. Young assistant appeared at her side almost instantly. "Ms. Behar will be with you soon. The green room's just down this way." She was led down a hallway lined with framed photos, politicians, actors, pundits, all smiles, all curated. The green room, however, smelled like stale coffee and nervous sweat. A producer popped her head in. "Can I get you anything? Water? Tea?" "No, I'm fine," Jasmine replied. She didn't sit. She paced. Something was off. A little too much forced cheer in the air. A little too much eye contact from people who normally looked through you. Then it happened. A different assistant, nervous, eyes darting, slipped in silently. No greeting, just a plain white folder dropped on the side table with no explanation. No name, no logo. Just slightly bent corners, like it had been rushed into existence. The assistant left as quickly as she arrived. Jasmine stared at the folder for a long beat. Then she opened it. Emails. Dozens. Internal threads from the round tables. Production team. Subject line. Strategy. Crockett interruption. She scanned. Bullet points. Talking points. Traps. Instructions. Open with soft disagreement. Shift to confrontation. Target housing reform. Frame her as inconsistent. If she redirects, interrupt. Use calm tone to regain control. Label her combative if she resists. Smile through it. Clip most reactive moments for socials. Jasmine felt the heat rise, not from anger but clarity. This wasn't journalism. This was a hit, planned, scripted, manufactured conflict for maximum engagement. And worst of all, they had the arrogance to put it in writing. She snapped the folder shut and placed it gently into her bag. Her reflection caught in the green room mirror. Calm, controlled, calculated. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about every person who had ever been invited into a room just to be torn apart in it. Every woman called emotional. Every black woman labeled aggressive for refusing to shrink. Joy wanted a moment. Jasmine was going to give her one, but it wouldn't be the kind she'd rehearsed. The studio floor was colder than she expected, almost surgical. Light rigs hung from above like silent watchers. Everything was designed for control. The angles, the lighting, even the chair placement. Jasmine could feel the tension in the floorboards, in the air, in her chest. A producer with too much gel and not enough eye contact guided her to the stage. "You'll be sitting here. Joy will open soft, then go into the party discussion. 5-minute segments, but we might cut for digital later." Jasmine nodded, saying nothing. "You might cut a lot more than that if I let you." Joy Behar entered, just moments later, draped in a muted lavender blazer and a smile that looked borrowed. Too polished, too careful. Jasmine had seen that smile before. It wasn't kindness, it was strategy. "Congresswoman Crockett," Joy chirped. "So glad you could make it on such short notice." "Wouldn't miss it," Jasmine said coolly. They shook hands. Cameras were already rolling behind the scenes. Every movement mattered now. Every blink, every breath could become a headline. The floor manager counted them in. 3, 2, 1. Red light. Live. "Welcome back to the round table," Joy began, voice smooth like silk over glass. "Tonight, we're joined by Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who's been making waves, some would say storms, within her own party. Smile, head tilt, perfectly rehearsed concern. Congresswoman, Joy continued, many are saying your recent votes are dividing progressives at a time when unity is crucial. How do you respond to those who feel you're off message? Jasmine didn't blink. She reached slowly into her bag and placed the white folder on the table, dead center, like evidence in a courtroom. Joy's eyes flickered, just for a moment. But it was enough. Jasmine opened the folder with calm, deliberate hands. Actually, Joy, before I respond, I'd like to read something your team prepared for this segment. Joy blinked. Excuse me? Jasmine's voice was steady as stone. If she redirects, interrupt calmly. Use tone policing to maintain control. Label her combative if she pushes back. Clip the most reactive moments for social media. Joy's smile cracked. Just a little. Are you accusing us of something? She asked, laughter creeping into her voice like a pressure valve. I'm not accusing, Jasmine said, flipping a page. I'm reading your words, your plan, your narrative, before I ever opened my mouth. The studio went silent. The audience, usually cued for polite applause, sat frozen. Offstage producers scrambled behind monitors. One whispered frantically into a headset. Another mouthed cut, but got no response. Joy tried to keep her smile. We prep all our guests. That's standard. Jasmine turned a page. Target housing reform. Frame her as inconsistent. Her eyes locked onto Joy's. You weren't preparing. You were scripting an ambush. You weren't interviewing me. You were staging a hit. Joy leaned back, her voice tightening. Congresswoman, with all due respect, you planned a lie, Jasmine cut in, and I brought the truth. For the first time in her career, Joy Behar had no words. Just the hum of a camera, the breathless quiet of a stunned room, and the sound of power slipping. The director's voice crackled through the headset. We're still live. Ride it out. Don't cut. But everything had already shifted. Joy adjusted her notes with a shaky hand, her voice tighter now. Let's stay on topic, Congresswoman. The housing bill. Jasmine didn't let her finish. You mean the bill you planned to distort? Page 6, Joy. Frame her as anti-tenant while praising her affordable housing record to cause conflict. You tried to weaponize my integrity. You turned policy into performance. Her voice didn't rise. That was the scariest part. She wasn't angry, she was exact. Somewhere off stage, a social media intern's jaw dropped. The clip was already being clipped. Screen recorded, sent before. The segment ended. A Crockett Reddit Live was on its way to viral status. Joy knew it. Her team knew it. The way she leaned back now wasn't composure. It was recoil. Let's take a quick break, she finally muttered. Cut to commercial. The screen faded to black, but the damage had already been done. Backstage was chaos, a flurry of producers, assistants, lawyers, papers shuffled, voices rose, someone cursed in a corner. Jasmine calmly stood, collected her folder, and walked out of the room like a surgeon leaving an OR, having just removed a tumor no one wanted to admit was growing. Outside the studio, the wind hit her face like a reward. Her phone buzzed violently in her coat pocket. Messages, mentions, missed calls. She checked Twitter. No. X now, and saw herself already gifted, already memed. Jasmine slapping the folder on the table, captioned, "When you come with receipts and a PhD in not today." Another, split screen of Joy's face mid-freeze with the caption, "Live." Footage of a narrative collapsing in real time. But the real power wasn't in the likes or the retweets. It was in the private messages. I've been silenced in rooms like that. You showed me how not to flinch. My daughter watched you. And asked, can I be like her when I grow up? You didn't just speak. You unmasked the whole damn system. Jasmine didn't smile. Not yet. This wasn't over. She had only exposed one script. How many more were out there? How many other interviews were traps wrapped in teleprompters? How? Many people sat down thinking they were heard when really, they were handled. She looked up at the gray sky above the city, and for the first time that day, she allowed herself a single thought. They thought they invited a segment. They accidentally aired a reckoning. By morning, the clip had hit 4.2 million views, and that was just from one upload. Major news outlets scrambled. Some tried to downplay it. Congresswoman overreacts on live television. Others leaned in. Crockett dismantles media trap, live and unfiltered. But the real tremors weren't in headlines. They were in inboxes, boardrooms, group chats, A major news network across town, a young segment editor forwarded the clip to her boss with a single line. "Are we doing this too?" In a campaign office in Detroit, a progressive candidate watched the footage 3 times before deleting her draft interview notes. "Start fresh," she told her comms director. "No pre-spin, no angles, just me." Even among staff at the round table, the aftershocks were felt. A junior researcher, Lena, the intern no one remembered during lunch orders, was quietly rereading the same emails Jasmine had exposed. She recognized her own comments in the bullet points. Her stomach twisted. She hadn't meant to be complicit. It was just how things were done. Until now. Meanwhile, Jasmine sat alone in her office, the white folder now tucked into her bottom drawer like a trophy, and a warning. Sasha burst in, tablet in hand. "You've got to see this. A senator had just tweeted. I don't always agree with Rep. Crockett, but today, she showed what courage under fire looks like. More of this, please." Beneath it, thousands of replies, some praising, some seething, but all engaged. "Looks like you went viral for truth," Sasha grinned. Jasmine didn't look up from her desk. Truth shouldn't need to go viral. But since it did, let's not waste it. She pulled out a legal pad. "We're drafting a bill. Media accountability in political programming, transparency clauses, disclosure requirements for editorial tactics." Sasha blinked. "You're legislating the fallout?" "I'm weaponizing the moment." Elsewhere, Joy Behar sat in a closed-door meeting, surrounded by executives and PR handlers. One of them whispered, "Should we apologize?" Joy stared at the screen, still paused on Jasmine's face, folder in hand, like a warrior holding up proof of betrayal. "No," she said coldly. "We wait. The news cycle will spin." But in her gut, she felt it. This wouldn't be forgotten next week, because Jasmine hadn't just burned a script. She'd made people ask, whose words am I reading? Who's behind the questions? What if my voice is just another line in someone else's show? This was no longer about one woman on one set. It was about all of us, and the silent scripts we're too used to following. By Thursday, an anonymous email landed in Jasmine's public inbox. Subject line, "You're not the only one." Attached, screenshots, planning documents, talking points. This time not from the round table, but from another high-profile news show. Same format, same language. Anticipate. Deflection. Use personal anecdotes to humanize pushback. Interrupt with controlled sympathy if narrative deviates. Jasmine read them slowly, deliberately. The implication was clear. This wasn't one show's dirty playbook. It was an industry standard. Meanwhile, across the country, whispers grew louder. A podcast host scrapped their planned episode and went, "Live. Y'all saw Congresswoman Crockett eat mainstream media alive, right? What if I told you that's the norm, not the exception?" A journalism professor opened her class with a challenge. "Forget everything I taught you last semester. Let's talk about what the truth actually costs, and who's footing the bill." Even viewers, long trained to watch without questioning, were seeing differently. That morning, under the viral clip, a top comment read, "They didn't expect her to show up with proof. They expected her to perform her own takedown. That's the game." 25,000 likes. In D.C., a quiet panic had begun, PR firms held emergency workshops. How to handle off-script politicians. Think tanks debated. Is media losing its control over the narrative? And in one network's dimly lit hallway, a producer muttered to another, "If more politicians start pulling a Crockett, we're screwed." Back in Jasmine's office, things were moving fast. Petitions, interviews, town halls. The folder had become a symbol. They even made T-shirts. I brought the receipts. All profits went to media literacy education. But Jasmine wasn't basking in the glory. She was preparing. She knew this wasn't over. Disrupting a system doesn't end with applause. It ends when the system adapts or collapses. And Jasmine was betting on the latter. One night, as the city lights shimmered below her window, Sasha asked, "You ever wonder why the intern leaked that folder to you?" Jasmine didn't answer right away. Then she said, "No one leaks truth for fun. They do it because silence started to taste like betrayal. And just like that, they knew someone else, somewhere, was already printing the next folder." And another. Woman was getting ready to read it live. Weeks had passed. The initial explosion had quieted. But the tremors hadn't stopped. More folders appeared, one at a time, some anonymous, some deliberate, some leaked by interns with shaking hands, some mailed by former staffers tired of their silence tasting like complicity. One folder exposed how a senator's spontaneous viral moment was actually a 3-camera rehearsal with coached questions. Another revealed pre-debate coordination between a campaign and a news anchor. A third? It showed that an entire town hall was stacked with planted audience members. The media called it the folder movement. Twitter called it read it live. But Jasmine called it something else. Accountability with teeth. She wasn't just reacting anymore. She was leading. In hearings, she grilled executives. Is this transparency or theater? She drafted legislation, the Media Integrity and Disclosure Act. It required networks to disclose editorial strategies when interviewing public officials. It passed committee by one vote. One nervous vote. She could feel the tide turning, slow, reluctant, but real. At an awards ceremony, Jasmine took the stage to a standing ovation. She held up a single piece of paper, clean, white, unmarked. "This," she said, "is what truth looks like before they get to it." Then she folded it neatly and put it in her pocket. You don't need to shout to be heard. You just need the receipts and the courage to read them out loud. Backstage, Sasha hugged her. "You changed everything." Jasmine shook her head. "No, I just proved the script was never ours to begin with." That night, in a quiet newsroom lit by nothing but the glow of late-shift monitors, a young producer hesitated before hitting send. She had a folder, full of emails, full of truth. She wasn't famous, she wasn't fearless, but she was done being silent. And somewhere, in some future studio, a red light would blink on. A host would smile. A question would be asked. And someone, calm as ever, would reach into their bag and say, "Funny thing, I brought a folder too. What would you do if you were handed that? Folder, would you read it live? Or stay silent?" Silence never changed anything.